Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Ryan Little. I'm an AWS Technical Program Manager for the AWS Educate team here in EMEA. And today we're going to walk through, I do have a page here, effectively building a coffee chatbot through Amazon Lex, which is our conversational interface service that's provided on AWS. And effectively, it is the interface or the framework upon which Alexa is built. So if you're familiar with the Echo devices and the voice of Alexa, it uses what we call automatic speech recognition and natural language understanding for understanding intent of text and things like that. So we're going to do a kind of a short demonstration or tutorial for building a coffee chatbot via Amazon Lex. And you will also get the tutorial guide to go with that. So effectively, what we want to build is something like this. This is kind of built out a little bit already, but if you wanted to get an idea of what this will look like for you and your students, then we can just take a look here. So you can ask the chatbot here, maybe, may I have a latte? Okay, and the chatbot will respond to you, asking for size. Okay, if you'd like it iced or hot. Confirmation of that, you'd like me to order a small hot latte, is that right? And then maybe I say, actually, make it a large. And the chatbot responds by saying, you'd like me to order a large hot latte, is that right? And I say yes. And then I get a response back saying, great, that large hot latte will be available for pickup soon. Thanks for using CoffeeBot. And I could go through any one of these other prompts that we'll talk about here on the left later if I leverage that, which we're going to build out. So I can say something like, can I have an espresso? And maybe I say, for size, I'll say large, hot. And maybe I'd like to change that and say, okay, can I get a small espresso? Confirming that I'd like to order a small hot espresso, yes. Okay, and then it responds by giving me that order. So you can kind of play around with some of these values here. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this kind of an output or experience through a coffee chatbot. And you can think of this much like a script, right? So the conversation that we're having here between, let's say, a customer and this interface, you want it to kind of flow very naturally. And we'll talk about why having things like a script, things like this, is very important in your chatbot experience and building that out. Okay, so that's the end goal of what we're after here. Hopefully, as and when we build this, this will start to make a little bit more sense for everybody, kind of building in these environments. There is a public page for Amazon Lex that I encourage all of you to go to as well, that it delves into more of this idea of conversational interfaces, automated speech recognition, natural language understanding. Some great use cases down here as well. So if you're using it for call centers, the NHS is using that to lower the number of calls that they get, particularly in the times that we're in these days. You can imagine the huge volumes of calls that they receive and drastically lowering the amount of calls that the human operators would get, so they can free up their time for the more kind of serious requests that they receive in the NHS here in the UK. So you see this for call centers a great deal. You also see it for informational bots, so having having everyday customer requests, like we're going to go through the coffee bot experience. If you want to get the latest news or updates on games, things like that, you can integrate Amazon Lex into that experience. Also, building out kind of everyday use as well. So in banking, in fact, one of our customers, Capital One, has leveraged Alexa and Amazon Lex into their customer banking experience. So you could be sitting at home and ask Alexa, how much money do I have left in my bank account? What did I spend on groceries this week? Am I overspending in this particular area? And that kind of interface and response will come back to you. So it's about streamlining the conversation, or streamlining the experience between customer and product or organization as much as possible, and making it more fluid, more natural. And I think that's kind of the goal ultimately of products like Amazon Lex. We also see it here for building out enterprise applications and getting things like marketing data. And of course, one of the more interesting ones is IoT these days. So you'll hear terms like AI, ML, IoT, Internet of Things. NASA actually uses Amazon Lex in their architecture. So students and educators can ask the NASA application, what's the temperature on Mars? And the rover, the robot ambassador called Rove-E, will give an output of the temperature. So it's maybe like minus 120 degrees Celsius in Mars at the moment. So finding ways for IoT devices to communicate back to us in a natural language context, natural language understanding. So NASA, very interesting use case there. There's also a public page available for building out bots. It looks at building out coffee bots as well. So if you go to the AWS machine learning blog and look under, well, you could search under Amazon Lex or building better bots, you'll come to this public page as well. So all sorts of resources that are out there for you. And this is what we're going to be building today. So let's get to it. I'm going to sign out here, and I'm actually going to log in. So all of you are effectively educators coming in to learn about your AWS experience for yourself or for your students. So for this particular session, I'm gonna walk you through the steps of actually creating this coffee chatbot as a student, and then I'll show you later how you can peer into that environment as an educator, maybe to troubleshoot or help your student along. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in as a student. And this is my student homepage. I'm going to go up to my classrooms. If you haven't yet created a classroom for your students on AWS Educate, I would encourage you to do that for a couple reasons. It scales, and so you can have many students building out these types of experiences through a classroom that you've created. Each student gets a specified dollar amount in credits. Typically, most classroom experiences, students will leverage about $30 in credits, but we give you a default of 50. This one has a little bit more. You'll see it has about 75 because we're leveraging a lot of AI, ML, and chatbot interface here. So it's not too expensive for the chatbot, but for AI and ML types of classrooms, you want to have a little bit more credits available for each of your students. And so the benefit of this is that students are not having to leverage their own starter account credits. So I'm going to go into Classroom as a student. Signing in through our third-party site, Vocarium. And as a student, I'm going to click on AWS Console. And we get the pop-up here. So it'll authenticate me into the AWS homepage. So I'm logged in as a student. I want to make sure, and you want to remind your students that they're doing all their building in Northern Virginia, otherwise known as US East 1. That is the only region we currently have access to for our students and educators, so make sure they're doing all their building there, no matter in their starter or classroom environments. And here you'll see a number of ways to access services through the drop-down service menu, through the search bar. We're looking for Amazon Lex, which is going to be our chatbot or conversational interface environment. We're going to go ahead and click on Get Started. And again, all of these instructions are going to be outlined for you in the tutorial, step-by-step instructions to make available for you. Okay, so one of the first steps here is to create the bot itself. You'll see here there's a number of ways that we can create our bot, which is we're going to either customize it. You can book a trip. So if you wanted to take a flight somewhere, you can have a chatbot. We have many organizations that are kind of building out those types of chatbot experiences, ordering flowers, scheduling appointments. So many of the everyday types of experiences that one can have. We're going to delve into this idea of intents, utterances, slots, and prompts, etc. later, but this is more or less the conversational flow that needs to occur that we saw earlier in the coffee bot experience. So we'll delve into that as we progress. So up here, we're going to click on Custom Bot. And we're going to give our bot a name. We're going to call this maybe Coffee Bot. And we currently just have the US English language here at the moment. I don't know if that's going to change in the future, but stay tuned. This is an interesting one. We have some output voices that we can hear. And so this, for example, if I click on Sally.
Hello, my name is Sally.
So you'll see here, if we want to have some sort of integration through our chatbot experience, we can have an output voice here. This actually leverages another service called Polly, Amazon Polly, which is the voice of Alexa.
Hello, my name is Joanna.
Okay, and you can sample out different voices.
Hello, my name is Matthew.
Okay, and you kind of get the idea.
Hello, my name is Kimberly.
Okay, so I'm just going to pick on Sally.
Hello, my name is Sally.
Okay, so pick a voice that you're comfortable with. We're going to do a session timeout. So the timeout here, effectively how long that bot is going to be running for in this environment. And now you can give a 5-minute timeout for this. You can opt for sentiment analysis. So under the hood, Amazon Lex uses another service called Amazon Comprehend for performing sentiment analysis on text or speech. So is the text or is the speech of a positive, negative, or neutral language, effectively? But we're not going to play around with that. In order to leverage Amazon Lex, we have to think about security, and along with security or any related to anything with security is our IAM, Identity Access Management experience. So we do need to have a role, which is a time-based credential for Amazon Lex. That's going to be automatically created on our behalf. And then in regards to the COPPA Act, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, we're saying that this is not going to be used, not directed at children, this bot. So we're just going to say no for that. Go to create. Okay, and then here we see our effectively the environment with which our coffee bot will be built. We have an editor tab here. We're going to spend most of our time in this editor tab talking about these different components. A little bit later, we're going to, once everything's created, we're going to build our chatbot and then test it out over here. So let's jump into this. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about this idea of an intent. And so if you've ever created Alexa skills, we often use these phrasings of intents and utterances, and also in Amazon Lex, right? So Amazon Lex is that framework upon which Alexa is built, and it's the goal. It's what we're trying to do in this conversation, or something that we're trying to achieve in this conversation. And for our purposes, this intent, we're going to actually create a new one. So I'm going to click on Create Intent, and we're going to give it a name. We're going to call this maybe Cafe Order Beverage. You'll see the naming convention here, so I'm not using spaces or anything like that. If I do try to use a space, I get this warning here. So we just want to be very mindful of the naming convention. So it will be a cafe order beverage intent, and we're going to add that. Okay, so we see that name populated up here. And the next step is to provide utterances. And these are phrases that people will ask, so much like you would ask Alexa, Alexa, tell me what time it is. Or Alexa, may I have a small mocha cappuccino? Alexa, what time does the movie start? Right. So these are the utterances that Alexa hears, right? In this case, too, what Amazon Lex is hearing. So we're going to populate those utterances here just now. We have some sample utterances in our user guide that I'm just going to copy and paste, and you can do the same thing here. And so just to show you a little bit about what that looks like, these are some sample utterances on page 2. So I can just grab an utterance of what someone might say when they initiate conversation with this bot. Okay, so I would like and we'll talk about these components here, beverage size. These effectively are slot types, beverage size and beverage type. Okay, so you would think, you can imagine this, how this conversation would go. Like, Alexa, I would like a small Americano, for example. Okay, grab a couple more here. And any others that you can think of. The recommendation here is to get usually around 7 to 10 different types of utterances that you can populate in your environment. Okay, just putting a few more in here. So you see, it's a lot of can I get or may I have let me get you can also say give me and we can opt for, let's say, beverage size or beverage type. Okay, and you can kind of play around with some of these values as you go to build out your utterances. Okay, so just a small sampling there. Maybe we'll add to this as we go. Okay, we're going to scroll down here. So again, why are we doing this? To phrase as many ways as possible to ask for something. The example that we give for booking flights is you can say, book me a trip, or I'd like to book a trip for next week. I'd like to book a trip for next Tuesday at 8 a.m. So there's so many different ways we can say that, so many different types of utterances. Okay. We're not going to play too much with the Lambda initialization or validation, so we're going to leave that one unchecked. You don't need to check that. But if you wanted to integrate what we call a webhook or a code hook into Lambda to do some sort of processing based on the utterance that is given, that can also be of use or value to you. We are going to use a confirmation prompt. here. So confirming what the customer is asking for. So if they're asking for a large mocha and they get the specs for that, we're going to say, are you sure you want to order that drink, for example? And I think we have a value that we can plug in there. Okay, so you'd like me to order and then some beverage size, some beverage type, and then getting some sort of confirmation. If no, we can go to, I think I have a script here. Maybe we say, actually, no, if I don't want that, I change my mind, then the chatbot can say, okay, let me help you out with something else, or what can I help you with? Okay. For fulfillment, we're going to keep this as default, so return parameters to client. And I believe now, as I'm just checking everything here, looks right. We're almost ready for our slots. There's one more thing that we want to do. We're going to go up to error handling. And if there's an error, what can we do basically? So here we can plug in a prompt. As you see, I'm just kind of going down the list on the tutorial here of what to include for each of these sections. So for error handling, sorry, but I didn't understand that. Would you please try again? All right, the chatbot for some reason didn't make out the order that was given. And give a maximum number of tries here, maybe 2, and we can save that. And I'm just going to go back up to my intents here. I'm going to save intent along the way, so we have our work saved here as well. Remember, we can add more utterances as we need to, or we can change the confirmation message once the coffee bot goes through its workflow. Make sure you go ahead and save changes, any changes along the way. Okay, so the next section that we're going to kind of play around with are slot types. Okay, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about slots, and a slot really here is our input data required to fulfill the intent, right? And we'll talk about what that looks like. We're actually going to create an environment where based on the different slot types, maybe like a cafe beverage type, we can include the names of the values like coffee, cappuccino, latte, mocha, that all of those naming conventions for slot type come into play here. So we're going to kind of plug in some values here for the chatbot. So you click on slot type, you click on create slot type. And we're going to do a number of these. So again, all of these are listed in your tutorial. We're going to have a slot type of cafe beverage type. Okay, notice the naming convention there. And here's where we can plug in the values for anything that's a beverage, basically. So you can think of, coffee as a beverage. We can say latte, cappuccino. Okay, mindful of your spelling there. I had to check a few times on the spelling of that. Maybe a mocha, could have chai, and I can go down to confirm these as I go. I can add slot to that intent, or I'm just hitting enter after each of these as well. So espresso, maybe smoothie. We could even go a little bit exotic and go mochaccino. Okay, we're going to go ahead and you can add as many as you want here for that particular slot type of beverage type. And I'm going to save that slot type. I'm going to add a few more of these because we have a number of different slot types associated. We're going to have also a slot type of cafe beverage size. Okay, and we can do sizes that we know. think in many popular coffee chains, you'll hear words like maybe venti, or extra large, all the different values here that go with it. So that's a pretty good mix. We're going to save that one. We'll do another slot type for maybe creamer. So slot type will be cafe creamer type. Okay, and then you can add in the values here for different creamers. So maybe 2%, 1%. We can add in things like half and half. Folks these days staying health conscious, so maybe soy or almond are in there as well. What are we forgetting here? Maybe whole, skim. Okay, so those are pretty good output for creamer type. We're going to go ahead and save that as well. And then we need one more for beverage temperature. So we'll have a slot for cafe beverage temp. Again, naming convention here. And probably just going to have two here, so we can either say iced or hot. Those are pretty much the only types that we can have, I think. But you could, if you think of any more, go ahead and include those. We're going to go ahead and I'm just going to save the intent here. And we might have to see, and because I was running through a test of this earlier, so we'll just see if it takes a moment to populate. It might take a few minutes here. You should see those slot types populate under custom slot types. So what I will do here is I'm just going to pause the video and then we'll come back once those slot types are ready to go. Okay, welcome back, everyone. This is effectively part B of the Amazon Lex CoffeeBot tutorial. Apologies, I had to stop the previous video, waiting for these slots to populate. It does take, I think, in my experience, takes about a couple minutes to see those customized slot types populate. So we did, you'll notice, create our cafe beverage type, beverage temp, beverage size, and creamer type. So those customized slot types and values will be populated here in just a moment. And as you see here, just as a reminder, these are this data is used to provide fulfillment to the intents, to these intents. So if they're asking, I'd like to have, a small cappuccino, I can get those values here and plug in and fulfill those values with these slots here. Or if I need to change I need to change any part of the utterance, I can do that vis-a-vis the slots here as well. Okay, so we are at the point where we're going to input some of the values here for our slot. And we can kind of plug and play with these a little bit. I will show you how this works as we go. But we're going to start with the first one under name. We're going to use beverage type. Okay. And this aligns to what we're plugging in over here. So the type of beverage, coffee, cappuccino, mocha, those types of things. We're going to associate that name to our custom slot, cafe beverage type. And we want to give a prompt. Okay, so this is our chatbot verifying, if you will, or confirming the request that's giving or asking of more information effectively from that. So it could be maybe the prompt here will be if I haven't specified what kind of beverage would you like? Okay, so for example, we can say mocha, latte. Okay, and so that prompts the user to enter some sort of value here of the slot types that we indicated for cafe beverage type. We're going to add that to the list. We want to make sure that that is checked, that is required asking of the chatbot. So we're going to make sure the chatbot definitely asks that question. We want to also include beverage size, small, medium, large. And we can say, what size would you like? And then just give some examples. Okay, and we'll add two more. We're going to add the creamer name, and also the beverage temp. We do want to make sure that beverage size is required along with beverage type, those two at the very least. Let's also add creamer. We're going to select cafe creamer type value. And the question can be, what kind of milk or creamer would you like? Okay. We're not going to ask. We're not going to require that. Although you could, if you wanted to build out your coffee bot as such. I'm not going to require it of my users, but you can kind of play around with that value as and when you'd like. And the last one is going to be beverage temperature, iced or hot, basically. We'll select cafe beverage temp, and the prompt will be, would you like that iced or hot? And we'll add that as a value as well. Okay, so what have we gone over? We've gone over the creation of intents. We give our intent a name. We added some sample utterances here, so different ways of asking for something. In this case, asking for coffee, by size, by type, by beverage temperature, and also any creamer that's associated. We did plug in some confirmation values, so verifying all of this information down here. And if it's not correct, we effectively have our cancel script that we can run. Okay, so just checking making sure we got everything. So we're pretty good. I think at this point we are ready to build. Just before we build, though, I do want to go down to save intent. Again, just like you're writing a Word document, you want to save your work as you go. You don't want to forget to do that. And I've been caught in that issue of having to retype things that I've forgotten to save. So make sure you go ahead and do that after every step. So let's test out what we have so far. We're going to go up to where it says build, and it's going to go through and build this environment, this conversational interface for us. We're going to confirm that we want to have it built, and it says you can edit as it's building as well. And then I'm going to click on where it says test chatbot over here. And it'll take a few seconds to load the build to make it successful. And then once it is, we can see how it works. Okay, so we're just getting the successful prompt here that the coffee bot built was successful. I'm going to exit out of that, and we can test our bot over here, leveraging any one of these sample utterances. So I can say, maybe, can I get a cappuccino? Okay, and we'll see. So far, so good. The chatbot is starting to interact with us. So based on the value of cappuccino, which is beverage type down here, it's asking me what kind of beverage, what size beverage I would like. So remember, those are the two required slots that we have here. So I've answered the first type, which is cappuccino, but I haven't specified beverage size. So that's what it's asking me here. So I might say medium. And it says, well, you'd like me to order a medium cappuccino. Is that right? And I can say, well, actually, make it a large. Okay, and then verifying here, you'd like me to order a large cappuccino. Is that right? I can say, yeah. Oh, got an error message there. Always interesting to see. And let me just double check and make sure that we, part of that is scripted and we're meant to have that, but I just want to verify. Kind of beverage would you like? Well, okay. And I'll say large. Like me to order a large Americano. Is that right? Yes. Yes. Okay. So just confirming that. It confirmed that I want to order a large Americano, but I didn't get a response type here down at the bottom, and that's what we need to fill out as well. But if I do want to look down at any of the information here, the responses that were given from this chatbot, I can get a summary of that here. I can get a detailed summary leveraging the JSON here that's listed for the exchange that I had with the chatbot. So this so far looks good, but we want to fill out this bit of the response that's given at the end of the order. So we want to get that kind of great, your large hot latte is on its way and you can pick it up soon. That's what we want to try to fill in here as a value. So at this point in the session, remember, we are still operating as a student, okay? I wanted to give you kind of a bonus step here of logging in as an educator to assist the student. So let's say the student comes up with this prompt, but they don't know how to effectively add to and close out this order for the chatbot. So that's where you as an educator might come in to help the student along here. So what I'm going to do is log out, actually sign out of the console as a student. And I'm going to log out here of AWS Educate. I'm going to sign in again as an educator now. So you can imagine a student giving you an email saying, how can I move forward with my chatbot, or I've hit a dead end here. What can I do? So I'm logged into AWS Educate as an educator. I'm going to go to my classrooms that I've created. Okay. I'm going to click on go to an AWS Educate Classroom. Okay, I've done these steps before. If you haven't created a classroom yet, this is the best practice for you and your students, because they're not having to manage and leverage their own credits here. These are classroom credits that they can use that you're creating on their behalf. I'm going to go to my classrooms. I'm going to scroll down to the classroom that I've created for this student. And it's going to take me to a third-party provider, Vocarium. So it'll be the same interface that the student site saw earlier. The one difference probably is this page here. Students don't get access to this dashboard. Only you as educators do. And so if you've correctly populated your classroom template, and it asks, one of the very last steps asks the number of students and their emails that you want to include in the classroom. And that classroom request gets sent to our team in the US. And they usually verify it, usually within 24 hours, they'll verify the classroom and all that good stuff. And then once a student accepts the invitation, you can view the student emails here. And we're going to go to the work area for that student. Okay, so I've found out that this particular student is having some issues with their chatbot. Okay, and I see I'm in the student experience now. We saw this in part A video earlier. I'm going to log in to the console via their Vocarium account. We're going to go to Amazon Lex. And we have the student's coffee bot experience here, and we see that it's built out to some degree. We can, of course, test that out. Okay, so I see that it followed most of the prompts and even confirming the order that I had. And I want to fix this kind of request, the response prompt here, because that's not quite what I want to see from my chatbot. So for this, we're going to go down to where it says response, and we're going to add a message. Okay, and so here, and this step is outlined in your tutorial, but the message can be something like, "Great, and then we can add in maybe your beverage. Your beverage size. And let me just check the spelling of that. Yep. Beverage size. Maybe the temperature. And also the beverage type. So great, your beverage size, temperature, and type will be available for pickup soon. Thanks for using CoffeeBot. Okay, and we can add that message, just confirming the way it looks. Don't forget, save that intent. Waiting for those arrows to go. And then once that's done, we're going to go back up here to build. And it's going to go through another short build. So under the hood, it's building out this conversational interface for us. Very nice, doing a lot of the heavy lifting for me for all of these areas. For a lot of the work that I'm doing here. So you actually see I'm not really inputting a lot of code here, really any code. I have a few sample utterances, a few slots and slot types, but that's really it. The code building is on the back end. That's the power of really AWS and cloud that it's providing here. And so I can test this out. So I can say maybe give me a mochaccino. And I'll get a large. I'll say, actually, make it small. Counting calories here. So you'd like to order a small mochaccino, is that right? Yes. And still getting an error. So that's a very good indication, too, that I need to check things. So I may have missed a thing or two here. So let me go to And just checking my, just going to take this out and just see if this does anything. It's not that uncommon that we do get errors, and it's helpful to know. And I think it might be that my confirmation prompt and my response prompt may need to be consistent here. So I'm just going to test that out here to be sure. And it's actually good that we're going through this together. And I'll go through another build. Very common to get errors in any space that we work in, so it's actually a good thing. We talk about failing, fail fast, fail early, fail fast, so and fail better. So let's try this again. So I'll say give me a mochaccino. Okay, and there we go. So I think that maybe that was the problem. We had our confirmation prompt with an extra value here, which didn't quite match our response value. So I had a confirmation prompt of beverage size and beverage type, and then I had the same thing down here as well. I confirmed that, a small mochaccino, and I said yes, and then it gives me that response back. So great, your small mochaccino will be available for pickup soon. Thanks for using CoffeeBot. Okay, so that is in effect our CoffeeBot experience. So I hope you found this this tutorial valuable and informational for you and your students. Go out and create classrooms for your students. Test out this conversational interface via Amazon Lex. Have fun with it, play around with it, and actually the recommendation here is to see if you can update any of these utterances, any slots and slot types and values, and rebuild again and retest and make it better. And so that is the ultimate goal here. That can be the ongoing challenge for you and your students. Make sure you check out our public page for Amazon Lex. A lot of great resources here. It talks about the overview, the features of these environments, and then any resources that you have. We also, don't forget, on our AWS machine learning blog site, we have building better bots using Amazon Lex. You can search for that in Google and have fun with that. So hopefully that makes sense for all of you. And I hope you found this experience valuable. So with that, I will leave you with that experience, and remember to check for also the PDF of this tutorial as well, which walks through all the steps that we've created. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in a future session very soon.